Dream On, Ramona Riley. This is the latest Ashley Herring Blake novel. I don't know what to say about this. It's an Ashley Herring Blake novel. If you've read her, which you probably have because she's one of the most popular lesbian authors right now. Actually, I don't know if she's a lesbian, but she writes lesbian fiction. So she's the most popular lesbian fiction author, I should say, before that gets misconstrued. So you probably know who Ashley Herring Blake is. You've probably read some of her books. And you probably like them because she's generally pretty well liked. That's why she's so popular. I do think she's a competent writer. I do like all of her books. None of her books I've hated. They're not my favorite books of all time. Some people really, really, really like them. I've enjoyed them all. They're all like a solid 4 to 5-ish stars. They're all pretty cheesy sort of romance novels, but well executed and gay. And they're cute. They always have a happy ending, and there's always a moderate amount of spice. And there's a lot going for these, and I see why people like them. And I like them as well. If you've read anything by her, you've probably read the Bright Falls trilogy, Delilah Green Doesn't Care, Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail, whatever, Iris Kelly Doesn't Date. Okay, those. That's like a series of vaguely interconnected novels. I mean, they're pretty interconnected, but each one follows one of a group of friends and their love interests, so they're all sort of standalone in a way, but they are connected. This series is going to be the same thing, I'd imagine, almost literally the same thing. This is the first in the Clover Lake series. I don't know how many books there are. I don't know if she said. I didn't do any research. Did you think I did research before I sat down to film the video? Absolutely not. But it takes place in the town of Clover Lake, and there's clear setup with the side characters who I'm going to assume are getting books as well. So this is really reminiscent of the Delilah Green series, but it also calls back a lot, I think, to Make the Season Bright, which is her standalone holiday romance novel. The reason I'd compare it to that one is because it's weirdly complicated. For cheesy, just generic feel-good romance, she writes some really complicated plots. Not in a good way or a bad way. I guess it's kind of good in that it shows these characters are multifaceted and have a lot going on in their lives, and it's not just romance or just work or just one thing, But it's also why it just feels like she takes the most complicated route from point A to point B that she can possibly take. I guess it's not even, I wouldn't describe it as from point A to point B, I'd describe it as point 1 to point 2, and she goes from 1 to 1.1 to 1.25 to 1.4 to 1.7, eventually to 2, and I'm why did we do all that? So in Make the Season Bright, the setting of that book is a friend of a cousin's house, and it's really weird how they get there. It's someone's friend of a friend who they don't even know, and then it's someone's friend's cousin or something that they don't even know, and I'm why are you here? Of all the places you could be, how did you both meet in this random place that neither of you fucking knows? This is that, where there's sort of a lot going on, and Ashley Herring Blake manages it well. Again, she is a competent writer, and I think these books are well edited. There's no loose ends. She ties everything together, everything comes back, everything serves a purpose. All of these setups that are clearly setups that are going to come back, eventually come back. Everything works, and there's no plot holes or anything, but it's just why did you choose to do all of that? But it works, so you can't really complain about it. It's just okay, that's complicated for no reason. So this book is about a film star named Dylan. Her parents are famous musicians, rock and rollers. She has a troubled childhood. They weren't very good parents. She's a Nepo baby actress, but she only gets cast as the bad girl because she's got this rocker child image, and she's been in the public eye her whole life and faced a lot of scrutiny. So she's dissatisfied with her family life, with her career, because she wants to do more normal roles or be the good girl in something for once. And she manages it. Well, really, her team manages it. They sort of convince a studio to finally give her this role, even though they didn't want her and she didn't really earn it. They convince her to give her the role of the main lead, the good girl in this lesbian rom-com movie, which that's another thing that's there's layers on layers in this. So the movie is an Iris Kelly script. Iris Kelly is from one of Ashley Herring Blake's other books. She gets a little cameo in this. She was the writer of the book, and then the book gets made into a movie. It's complicated, interconnected. So she's doing this movie in this small town where she meets the love interest Ramona, who's just like working there, living there. She grew up here. She has dreams of being a costume designer in Hollywood, and she went to school for it, but only for a year. And then, like, her mom left, and her dad was in an accident, and she had to move home and take care of her little sister. So she gave up her dreams to be with her family. And so obviously, she's going to get a role as a costume designer on this film set. I did have a critique with that. I'm all over the place. I was doing a recap, but whatever. So she idolizes a costume designer working on this film, who's this like big name costume designer. And that lady has an assistant who is obviously going to either get sick or be out of the picture in some way, or like be really bad at her job and get fired. And then Ramona is going to step in as the new assistant. You obviously know that's going to happen because she wants to be a costume designer. And it's the perfect time in her life because her little sister is just turning 18 and is just about to go to college. It's the summer before college. And so she's at a point where she could move away to LA to be a costume designer. So she's going to get this job. But it kind of just falls into her lap. The assistant just like goes away on vacation or something at the end of the book. And then Ramona steps in. This isn't a spoiler. It's a spoiler, but it's not, man. You know what's going to happen. You know everything that's going to happen in this novel. There are no spoilers. You cannot spoil the most basic romance plotline. I'm sorry, you can't. So the assistant just like goes. It's like a really quick like little paragraph where it's like, yeah, she's just gone or something. I think she was on vacation. So they're just out on vacation. It's a non-binary costume designer. We don't see that assistant very much. So that assistant is just gone, and then Ramona steps up, and the costume designer's like, oh, you're pretty good at this. Do you want to come work with me in LA? It's like, yeah, I do. Wow, who could have imagined? But Ramona's thing is that she gave up everything to be with her family, and she never takes care of herself, really. She puts others before herself, and so I thought for character growth, she would like really step up and like be determined to get this role and make it happen for herself and not just like wait for it to fall into her lap, where she happens to be on set the day that the assistant leaves and isn't there, and Noelle, the costume designer, needs help. Because it's set up in the beginning that she knows her idol is here, and she knows she wants to work with her, and she knows this is her chance to do something. She never really does anything, except like, there's like one scene where she does give her input and make sure that Noelle hears her input earlier, but Noelle doesn't hire her off that. It's pretty coincidental. So I was expecting to see Ramona like really step up to the plate and be like, hey, I'm better than that assistant, or you got this wrong, like the scene's all wrong. And then she comes in and intrudes and enforces herself on the situation, but is right about something and like changes an aspect of the costume, and the costume designer's like, wow, kid, you've got guts and you've got an eye, or whatever. Like, she would make it happen for herself, and that didn't happen. It just happens. So for character growth, that could have been different, but just slightly improved. But that's really like one of my only critiques of this book. But anyway, back to recapping the plot. So they're the love interest Ramona and Dylan. They're both here around this film set. They're filming like at the diner where Ramona works, and that's how she initially gets involved, and that's how she meets Dylan. But actually, that isn't how she met Dylan. Dylan, when they were 13, Dylan was living with her aunt, and they took a vacation to this little town, and she and Ramona happened to meet each other on the lake shore when they were 13, and then they hung out one night and they had their first kiss together. But it's this complicated situation where they didn't give each other real names, but Ramona ends up finding out Dylan's real name eventually because she's famous. And so Ramona recognizes Dylan immediately and knows that that's the girl she kissed when they were 13. But Dylan doesn't recognize her, and so there's like this childhood lovers, friends aspect, and like a secret identity aspect, and a contemporary present day romance aspect. And it's like there's just like all these layers for no fucking reason, but it all works out and it all comes together and it's cute. And there's little like moments of, they call each other the fake names they did as kids. Is cute, and their jobs work out because they both go to live in LA now, and They both work in the entertainment industry. Everything works out. And, you know, Ramona's friends are like, oh my god, it's your childhood crush that you've told us about, and you have to be together, and it works. Oh my god, that's so cute. So Ramona's friends are on board, and it's cute. It works out. Again, this is a competent writer and a competent editor. I don't know who edited this, but whoever did a good job of making sure that everything works out. So hats off to Ashley Herring Blake. Literally, my hat's off. I'm not even wearing a hat. The hat was never on. That's how off my hat is. So there's like all this shit for no reason, but it works out, so whatever, I guess it's fine. But you can definitely see the setup of a series here. I think it's gonna be exactly like Delilah Green. Like, literally exactly. Because I don't know how many books there are again. I don't know. This is speculation, but I'm assuming her best friend, Ramona's best friend, April. She's a tattoo artist in town. She's pansexual, and she loves horoscopes. That's her thing. We get, you know, like weird character traits about these people because they're obviously going to show up in other books. And she has like this on again, off again fuck buddy relationship with Lee, who's non-binary. They went to school with Ramona and what's April? Forgot her name. Was just talking about her. And Lee is like a hot non-binary fuckboy doctor who just like sleeps around and doesn't commit. But is kind of a good person. They're not like, you know, the evil ex. I think someone in Delilah Green has like an ex-husband. He wasn't evil, actually. He was a good guy. But he obviously doesn't end up with Delilah Green's love interest, whose name I don't remember. But whatever. So I don't know if April and Lee are gonna finally get together and like solve their commitment issues. I think that'd be cute. I liked Lee. We don't see a lot of them. They're used as like comic relief a lot. But I liked that, and they're a doctor, so you know they're rich and they can do whatever they want. Just like in this book, you know, Dylan's rich, and so they can do whatever they want. And the fact that Ramona's like a cafe worker, it's like a diner waitress, you know, it doesn't matter. They're not bound by any obligations or anything here. It just works out. It's a romance novel. Everything's gonna be incredible, hunky-dory, fantastic. So I could see April and Lee getting together, but April might also get another love interest. I'm not sure. Maybe Lee gets their own book. Probably not. I just see them being like a side character or a love interest, which I would be fine with. I could kind of like them, like I said. And then you have Ramona's little sister, Olive, who is just turned 18 and is at the end of the book. I guess that's spoiler. I mean, you know what's gonna happen. It's not spoilers because everyone knows what's gonna happen. So Olive has a best friend who she's grown up with, whose name I don't remember. I'm not gonna lie. Marnie? That's not right. It either starts with an R or an M. Remy, Marnie. I don't know. But that girl's a butch lesbian who's like clearly in love with Olive, but Olive hasn't figured out that she's bisexual yet. Even though she keeps like saying like slightly gay things. And Ramona and all of her gay friends are like, you're gay, kid. And then at the end of the book, she's like, yeah, I might be gay and in love with my best friend. So they're doing a thing. That was really cute. I actually didn't expect them to get together in this book. They're very, like, minor side characters, so you don't get a lot of them. But I could see them getting their own book, and I thought maybe, you know, that book would be them, like, finally admitting they were in love with each other and, like, finally coming together. But I guess they'll already be an established couple when they get their book. Because I'm going to assume that Olive gets a book. I'm going to assume that the main characters are Ramona, Olive, and April, which is two sisters and then their friend, which is exactly the same as Delilah Green Doesn't Care, which was a trilogy about two sisters and their friend all finding love. So literally doing the same thing again. But again, she's a competent writer, so it works out. And I don't have a problem with it. They're feel-good romance novels. They're exactly what you'd expect. They're executed exactly how you expect them to be. Perfectly competent, pretty enjoyable. It's not a guilty pleasure read because there's nothing really guilty about this. It's just, you know, a feel-good book. One of the reviews described this as hokey, and I can't stop thinking about that, and it's kind of true, but like that's what you'd expect out of a romance novel. And it's not so cheesy. It's just the right amount of cheese. Not overly cheesy, not underly cheesy to where there's too much drama. There is like some miscommunication plot lines in this. Not everyone will vibe with that. because I don't know, it does suck the tension out of it, because you're like, just talk to each other, and then you're also like, I mean, you know they're gonna talk to each other, so it's like, it's not that tense. But that's what people usually want when they read a romance novel, especially like one like this. I know some romance novels can have better tension, but you don't expect this out of an Ashley Herring Blake book. So if you go in knowing Ashley Herring Blake and knowing what to expect, this is exactly what you'd expect. You will not be disappointed. It's perfectly satisfactory, perfectly on brand, pretty good. Sex scenes were good. They were really long. They were a little bit out of the blue a couple of times. Like the first sex scene, I was not expecting that so soon, because they kind of go slow and it's like a build up, and they don't even like kiss on like their first date, and then they have their first kiss, and then all of a sudden things are happening. And then there's another point later on where you think they're gonna have an emotional like conversation, because they have to have one, and it's like that point in the novel, and it feels like they're about to have one, and then instead they just get the strap out, and then we read about that for a while. So that was the sex scenes in this are explicit and slightly jarring, but not that badly. But they're there. If you want them, you will enjoy them. They do come in kind of out of the blue. And it kind of did feel like they were there because people want them, you know? She had to throw a couple of those in for good measure, because that's what people want out of their romance novels. But they were well written, they were interesting, not super generic. Definitely not super generic. Pretty long, pretty good scenes. A little sudden, but that's fine. There are worse sins for a book to commit than that. But yeah, that's all I have to say. They do move to LA at the end. Spoilers. They move to LA. So I'm assuming they have to come back to Clover Lake at some point, because it's called the Clover Lake series. So I assume that, I don't know, maybe they spend half the year there and then they kind of get away in Clover Lake. And maybe they come home to see Olive when she's at home for college in the summer. So maybe they all spend summers together. And then, I don't know, April lives there, so maybe her book is like her doing her own thing, and then at some point Dylan and Ramona come back, and you know, so we get them, but we also get to focus mainly on April's story, because Dylan and Ramona aren't there the whole time, which is a little different than Delilah Green Doesn't Care, because they all lived there. I don't know, whatever, we'll find out. She'll write them. It'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be very on brand, pretty predictable, nothing crazy, well written and good. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the series.